So what we're talking about today is documenting processes using the process tools in TouchStone. So just to do a quick recap, the first session, we talked about the 4 key functions over here and making a list of all of your processes and organizing them into each one of these 4 key functions. Then we discussed the organization chart. So a picture of your departments, identifying key positions within the company. Then we talked about building job descriptions by linking processes from the 4 key functions here to the boxes on the chart. So the 3 steps are listing everything in the 4 key functions, building your org chart, and then assigning processes, assigning accountability from the 4 functions here to every box on the org chart who's accountable for that process. And that then creates what we call a job description. Once you've gotten to this step with one position, but hopefully with all of them, you're then in a really good position to start to document your processes. So you can see where if all the processes are organized by position, by linking them from the 4 functions over here, you then have like just a template for what processes need to be documented for each position. And the job description acts as this template. It becomes like a list of what needs to be documented. So let's go to a process. Click this one. So this is called the process tools page. And when you select a process from a job description, like I just did, or from the 4 key functions, it takes you to this screen. And this is called the process tools page because these tools over here to the left are what we give you to document the process with. So there are numerous tools and templates here going down this left-hand side of the screen that you have available to document with. So in today's session, we're going to talk about Workplans and checklists, these first 2 tools. And then next week, we're going to finish up with the rest of the process tools. So to begin this, I'm going to go and create a process. So I just clicked on doing the business here. So I'm back in the 4 key functions. And to create a process, I would click here and then I choose create. And I type in the name of the process here. I also tell TouchStone which subfunction to put it in. And then I'm going to put this up here and then I hit save. So you can see my process name is right here, this process I just added. This process is red right now because there's nothing in it. It's just a title. So that's what red means. Black means it's completed. And I'm going to show you how to turn a process title black. And blue, like down here, means that the process has begun. Somebody started documenting it, but it isn't finished yet. I'm going to click the process name, this title. So now we're on the process tools page again, but we're now inside of this new process I created. So this is what it looks like when the process hasn't been started yet. You're going to see all the tools over here to the left, but there'll be nothing in it yet. The first thing you want to do after you've named the process is go here and fill in the objective. So this is the purpose of the process. It's usually a sentence or a phrase. You can do them informally, like how to do something. So how to make phone calls, how to do what is going to be explained in the process. You can make them more formal, like ensure that every time something is done, you follow these steps. So this is completely up to you. The purpose of this field, again, is to explain what's in the process, explain the meaning of it, the purpose of it. Ideally, if somebody looks at the process and the objective, the title and the objective, they would know what the process is, and by reading the objective, they will know what's in it. So create these objectives and then hit save. It's also a really good thing to do to create these objectives when you create the process titles, because then you can get really clear on what's going to be in the process. So when you go to document it or someone else goes to document it, they kind of see what's the beginning, what's the end, what's inside of, what's the scope of this process. If I want to edit a title that I've entered or a title that came from the library, it's just click to edit. So you click, you get this little underline, which lets you know you're on it, and then you save or cancel. And objectives, the same thing. I click, save or cancel. These three toolbar items right here, I'm just going to talk about quickly. This first one is called Mark Public. And what that'll do is it'll put the process in what we call the public folder. So I'm going to go back over here to the dashboard. This is where the public folder is. So whenever somebody logs in, they're going to see their control panel here. Every employee, they're going to see the position they fill right here. If they're a manager, they're going to see management review and their employees listed underneath that. And then to the right, everyone's going to see this public folder. So the public folder is for processes that are company-wide information. So they're meant to be processes that everyone in the business should have access to. So they're going to tend to be processes that are related to human resources, because that's something that pertains to everyone. So it could be like employee handbook. This is a great public process. It could be like 60-day review, satisfaction surveys, also a good process, how to request a vacation. So any kind of human resource things that people need to have access to. You can even put like commonly used documents in here, like for changing your name or your address or your W-2 exemptions. And then if they're here in the public folder, your employees know right where to go to find things. You could also have more strategic things like there's sometimes your company philosophy, like management philosophy could be here. Your compensation plan, so how people get paid, meeting guidelines, that's another good one. So just a list of expectations and standards around meetings. Emergencies and injuries, also a good one. You can also have software how-tos. So assuming that everyone in the company needs to use certain types of software, you might have a process like this one. This is CRM how-tos. But you could have like Google how-tos or email how-tos. And then this would be, step-by-steps for how to use your commonly used software. What you don't want to have in the public folder is processes that are the accountability of one person or another, but not the whole company. Because processes like that are meant to be linked to that person's job description or that position's job description, and then accessed only by the people who have access to it. To the right of the public folder or mark, there's this is the mark complete. So this action right here, if you select it, will turn the process title black. So if we go back here to doing the business on the trail, you can see that my process title is now black. So TouchStone automatically turns it blue when something gets created in it, and then you would manually turn it black. This is a good question someone's asking. Yes, you can unmark it. So I can do this, and now the process title is going to be black back to red. So you can decide things are finished and then go back later and say, it's not quite finished. Let's unmark it, finish it, and then mark it again. This icon right here is called Link to Job Description. And this is just another quick way to link a process to a job description on the org chart. So we went through how to comprehensively build the job descriptions by going to a box on the chart, go add existing process, link all the processes at one time and hit save, and then you build the job description. But this is just another way. This is a way to, first of all, see which job descriptions the process has been linked to, and then link it and unlink it as well. So if I wanted to link this to the president, say, I would just select it. And now you see it here in orange, which means it's on that job description now. And then if I want to unlink it, I just click here and now it's removed. Okay. So let's talk about work plans. And then once we get into work plans, I'll also talk about some more general functionality on this page. So over here to the left, the very first tool at the top here is called a work plan. I would suggest that probably 95% of the time, every process would have a work plan. So the work plan template or tool is the place to start. You always want to go first for the work plan. Processes then may have a checklist or a script or a file or a video, and they may not. It just depends on what you think is necessary for the documentation or what you think would be valuable. But pretty much all of the time, the process would have a work plan. The work plan becomes like the overall step-by-step set of instructions for the process. It has all the detail in it. It's comprehensive. It has enough for training purposes. And then again, these other tools are just as necessary. So to make a work plan, I just click this little plus sign. Then I'm being prompted for the title of my work plan and the objective. So here, this is going to be the name of the work plan. And then here, it's going to be, again, the purpose of it, the objective, and then hit create. So then you'd see over here to the left that my work plan is now here. TouchStone does truncate the titles if they get too long, but if you hover over it, you're always going to see the full title. So really easy to make a work plan, and all the other tools work the same way. If you want to make a checklist, you hit the plus sign, put the name in, create. All of them work the same way. It's pretty intuitive. Just go right for the plus sign. Sometimes processes will have one work plan, which would be just then become a series of tasks from beginning to end, and then that's it. And then some processes may require multiple work plans. There may be 3 or 4 work plans in a process. And the way that you decide is you want to think to yourself, is this process, and here's where you want to think about the objective too, what you've written as the purpose. Does it have just one series of tasks from beginning to end and that's it, it's done? Or does it have multiple parts to it? Or another way to say it is multiple workflows, multiple series of tasks that create a result, all under one umbrella, which would be the name of the process. So if your process does have multiple work plans, then go ahead and identify those work plans. I'm going to go to an example just to illustrate this a little more. I'm going to go here to running the business. So here's a process called accounts payable right here. And if I click accounts payable, I'm going to see that the objective of this is ensure all bills are paid on time and in the company's interest. So this is telling me, this objective, that in this process is everything I'm going to need to know on how to pay bills. If you look to the left here, you'll see I've got like 6 work plans here. And the reason is there are 6 different ways that bills are paid. So it has 6 different workflows, 6 different set of tasks that create the result. Now, I could have made processes for all 6 of these things. Like I could have a check deposits process, a bank deposits, or an invoicing process. But instead, I've grouped it together under one process header called accounts payable. So here, and we talked a bit about this in the 4 key functions webinar, but this is just about your preference, really. There's nothing necessarily wrong with having 6 work plans under one process. In fact, I like that better. But you could also have 6 processes, and each work plan would be a process. My sense about it is that it just creates more processes on your 4 key functions, and more is not necessarily better. Sometimes more can feel overwhelming and just harder to organize. So I like combining things so that I know everything related to accounts payable is here. Everything related to accounts receivable is here. Everything related to collections is here. Now, inside of these different processes I've mentioned, there might be multiple things that happen. So you would have multiple work plans. If you're facing any of these decisions now, and you have kind of gone really narrow with your titles and made 5 processes instead of having one, you can reverse that by just taking the processes and moving them into, or taking the process titles and then recreating them as work plans inside of one process. Okay, so let's go back. I'm going to go back here to that process we were just in. So name your work plans. One other quick thing about work plan names: if there's just going to be one work plan, like not multiple, just one, there's nothing wrong with having the name of the first work plan be the same as the name of the process. So if this is called process name and there's only going to be one work plan, then I would also call this one the same thing. So if you're struggling to try to make different titles for the tools, then it's unnecessary if there's only one. If there are multiple, then it's going to be obvious what the titles of those should be, because it wouldn't be as broad as the name itself. It would be more specific. So I'm going to click this work plan again. So this is what a work plan looks like when it hasn't been created yet. So to start to build the work plan, you click Add Task, and I click on this Untitled in gray. The minute I put my cursor here, that goes away. It's just showing you where to put your cursor. So this is how you add a task. So when you add a task, the first thing you want to think about is, when you're building the work plan, where does this start? So where is the beginning? What kind of sets the stage for the task that you're about to describe? So here you would type in the details of the task, and then you would save it. So you think, what's the first step? Write it out and save it. Then you go to the next step, which is the second task. So this is forcing you into step by step by step, which is the way you want to go about documenting a work plan. You want to think, what's the first thing, the second thing, the third thing? Try to be as clear and concise as possible when you're listing out the tasks. So then this becomes task 2, and then I save it. If I want to go back and edit a task that I've already created, it's just click to edit. So I just click that, it's going to open to show me the toolbar. This formatting here, or the icons here in your toolbar, are very similar to most word processing that you're used to. There's just a few things that are different or special to this toolbar. The first is the hyperlink tool. So that's this little link chain here in this row. So the hyperlink tool allows you to create links from one thing and another inside of TouchStone. So I could link from this task here to a whole nother process that's in TouchStone. Or I could link from this task to another tool inside the process. So say I had a checklist here, I could say in this task, fill out this checklist and then make a link to it. You can also link to things that are outside of TouchStone. So anything that lives on the internet, basically, could be another website, could be another web page. So to make a link, I highlight the link word like this. Then I go here to this link chain. And then I hit the drop down here, and I'm seeing all the link options. The first option is called URL. And so this would be an example if I wanted to link to something outside of TouchStone. So another website or another web page. So let's do a quick example here. This is our CRM. It's called Keep. And if I wanted to, say I was doing a work plan on how to access Keep and how to use it. And I wanted to explain someone how to log in and then how to go to your dashboard. I could go up to this URL, and this is how I would do it. I just highlight this and go right click, copy. And then I go back to TouchStone, and then I would just paste the URL right in here and then hit insert. So now this becomes a link to that URL. And then I could put something like click this link to log in. And when I save it, then this link becomes active. And when I select it, it's going to take me to where I created the link. Now, in this example, if this is a web tool, Keep is a web tool. And if I wasn't logged into it with my username and password, then this link would take me to the login screen. So it can't push past the login screen because you have to have a username and password for that. So make sure you're logged into the tool, then click the link and it goes right to it. So this can be really helpful when you're writing out tasks on how to use certain software tools or certain websites to go to. Well, let's do another link. So I'm going to make this the link word now, and then I go to the hyperlink tool and hit the drop down. So that was the URL link. You can also link to a whole other process in TouchStone, or you could link to a work plan within a process. So these, by doing hyperlinks like these, you're showing the connections between your processes and the other tools inside of TouchStone. And why that can be important is sometimes people, employees need to know how to do one thing before they do another, where one process ends and another one begins. Or another example is, I may need to know information inside of one process in order to complete the task of another. So here you just choose the type of tool you want to link to. And when I hit the drop down here, these are all of the processes that I have in TouchStone, all in alphabetical order. So you just choose the one you want to link to and you hit insert link. So think about using the hyperlinks when you want to link to a website or web page, or when you want to link between one thing and another inside of TouchStone. Another unique thing about this toolbar is the image uploader. So you can take a screenshot or take a picture of something, and then you can insert it directly into the task. I use this, where is it? I use this tool here. It's Capture. It's made by Smith Tech. It's free. It's a really great, easy screen capture tool to use. I know that Macs have their own built-in snipping tool, and the Windows operating systems have a snipping tool as well. But this one's just way better. It has way better functionality, and again, it's free, so why not? So all you do is hit capture on this, and then I get these little crosshairs, and then I can go and like take a picture of anything, just a snippet of it. And then I hit this little capture button. And so now I see this functionality up here that exists. So I can do like an arrow to something. I can change the color of it. You can like highlight stuff like that. So there's fancy things you can do to kind of make your point or refer to something particular in the image. And then I just save these. I usually save them in my downloads, and I hit save. And then I go to my downloads and I just drag it into the screen and let go. And I'm going to pull it down here so you can see. So all I did was drag it from my downloads and plopped it right into the task screen here. Wherever your cursor is flashing is where the image is going to go. So if I had my cursor out here, then the image would pull over here, which is probably not ideal. So make sure your cursor is where you want the image to be. If I click on this image, I can then, do this. I can make it bigger. I can make it smaller. If you have a huge image, sometimes it'll even go off the side of the screen here. So all you have to do is click on it and then drag it up until it gets back into the view screen and is small enough to be viewed. And then when I save this is kind of what it looks like. So whenever you can take a picture of something, then definitely do. You can see here, I could be saying 10 different things about this image, and instead of writing them all out, you can see it. So it has a way bigger impact and allows people to understand things better. In a work plan, underneath the tasks right here, there's this section called expectations. So the tasks are the actions. They're the step by step by step. The expectations are anything else that you want to say about the work plan that isn't part of the actions. Kind of very broad, but I'll give you some examples. It could be something subjective, like how something's supposed to look and why it's important for it to look that way, how it's supposed to feel, how it's supposed to sound. It could be timing, so when it's supposed to be done by. It could be around, we call it the why. So why something's important. Another way that that's described is through the word context. So you give context to it. So all those types of things are important because it kind of shows like how to go the extra mile with things. Just following tasks and learning tasks is one thing, but the quality in which you do it can have a huge impact, not in every process, but in a lot. So this is a place for you to explain that. So same as add task, I just hit add expectation, click it open, and then this is the expectation. So again, like the timing, something subjective, and then save. Break your expectations up just like you would the task. So maybe this first one's timing, and then add another one, and this could be some kind of quality, save. If the work plan doesn't have any expectations, then don't force it. You're going to know. Just think about it. If it comes to mind, great. If not, then you can leave that field blank. All the tasks, including expectations, also drag and drop to reorder. So if I wanted to make this number 1, all I'm doing is holding my mouse down and then dragging up, and it's going up and down. And then same with the expectations, up and down. So let's go through these toolbar items here before we move on. So when you're on a tool, this toolbar will appear. So if I'm on the process, this breadcrumb trail will always show me where the process is on the 4 key functions. So I know it's in doing right here. If I click process name, it's going to take me back to the title of the process. And I don't see that toolbar. This is the title and the purpose, the objective. If I want to go back to the work plan or any other tool, I just click it. And so now I'm on the work plan that's in this process. If I want to get back to the title, then I go back here. So the first icon in this row is called Convert to Checklist. So this feature allows you to take a work plan and turn it into a checklist. So if I click this, it's going to say, are you sure? I say, okay. And now I have a work checklist right here that's been made out of my work plan. And if you look at it, it's just the tasks that we created, and it's put in next to these little tick boxes. So this is a cool feature because oftentimes if you want some quality control for the process, it's just the tasks of the work plan that somebody would check off as they do it. So that's what that feature is for, that convert to checklist. We're going to talk way more about checklists here in a minute, but remember this functionality because I think it can be, not in every case, but in a lot of cases, it can be a really cool way to create a checklist. To the right of the convert to checklist, I have this move process icon, move process tool. So if I wanted to take this work plan here out of this process and move it into another process, then this is the tool I would use. So I select it, and now I'm looking at the 4 key functions right now, and I'm trying to find the process that I want to move this work plan into. So I hit the drop down here. These are all my sub functions from the 4 key functions. So you have to know where the process is that you want to move this tool into. Go to the sub-function that the process resides in. Now I'm seeing all my processes that are in the advertising sub-function. Then I choose the process I want to move this into, and then I would hit move. So you're basically taking this, any tool, because this icon appears for all the tools, and you would be taking it out of this one process and moving it into another. To the right of the move process tool, we have the print or download button. So here I can download to Word, or I can send it to my printer. When I send this to my printer, I can go over here to the destination and make it save as a PDF. Every printer has this nowadays. So if you do want a PDF, then choose the printer icon and then change it to save as PDF. And then when I hit save, it's going to save this back to my computer as a PDF. Here you can change things like footers and headers. So I have this unchecked, and it removes these little headers and footers that you see on web pages. Background graphics you can get rid of. The other option is to download to Word. So if I clicked this, Microsoft Word would launch, and then this work plan would download to Word. The next icon over is called the archive. So the archive allows you to keep versions of your documentation. Why you would want to keep versions is some industries have compliance that they have to deal with, where they have to show that they've changed things. Not all businesses, but some industries and businesses have a lot of HR compliance. So you have to show that you've updated something according to new laws and regulations. And in other cases that all businesses have, things change. So I might want someone to go and update this work plan. And if they do, I don't want to forget what it used to look like. I want to see what they've changed and be able to restore it to its old condition if I chose to. So these are all reasons to archive. To archive a tool, I just hit the archive button and then say, okay. So easy as that. Now TouchStone's put a copy of this work plan into the archive right here. And if I click archived, then I see it right here. It also gives me the date that it was archived. So you could edit the title and call this version 1, 2, 3, but I kind of think that's unnecessary because the date shows you what version it was, the state it was in on that date. And they'll just like go one on top of each other if you archive multiple. If I want to restore this, first of all, I could view it just by clicking this and it would just show it to me. Or if I hit this little restore button, then TouchStone's going to restore it. And you look over to the left here, you'll see now I've got 2 work plans. So the archive keeps versions, and every tool you can archive. This last tool in this toolbar row is for deleting. So if I click this and then I say, okay, then that tool is now gone. And you see before I had 2 over here, now I just have 1 because I deleted 1. Only administrators can delete. So if you have employees that are that you've given create access to, and they're in here like changing things and they delete something, it's never actually gone forever. So over here where it says deleted, this is like just a big trash can that exists. So I can always see here what's been deleted and I could restore it. So let's go back here. So this is this toolbar row, pretty straightforward. The archive, what's been archived or deleted, is accessed through these 2 buttons here. So let's go to an example process. And I just want to talk a little bit about what makes a good work plan. So I'm going to go here. This is a process called customer complaints. And then I'm just going to select this first work plan here. So a work plan is a step-by-step set of tasks or instructions on how that work is done. The best work plans go in sequential order. So you think of workflow, first step, second step. The best work plans have enough detail that somebody with the minimum qualifications for that position, who's accountable for the work plan, would know how to do that work just by reading it and studying it. So one thing to think about when deciding if you have enough detail or not is to think about the person who's going to be doing this work and think about the qualifications they need to have before you would hire them. So it could be experience level. So how many years of experience? It could be education. So do I have to have a college degree? Do I have to just have a high school diploma? Do I have to have a doctorate? So what's the education level of that person? It could be technology that they're supposed to know, or trade skills, or any kind of skills that they're supposed to have. So they could be required to know certain types of software already, or they could be required to learn how to know how to use certain tools already. So think about the minimum qualifications of the person you'd hire, and then build the work plan from that point forward. So this is a long way of saying, if somebody already has or should have the qualifications or experience to know how to do something, well, then you don't have to put it into the work plan because they should know that, and you wouldn't hire them if they didn't. So this really answers obvious questions like, what if you're documenting processes for lawyers or accountants or doctors? Well, my processes aren't going to teach someone how to be a doctor. They already should know that. What it is going to teach them is the way that we do it at this business or your business, the way we do it here. They have to be taught that, but the fundamentals of how to be a doctor, they don't need to know. To take this analogy one step further, if you have really well-written, detailed work plans, then you can get away with hiring someone with less of the qualifications. So if I'm going to build a process on customer complaint processing here, and I want to hire someone to do this and potentially pay them less, and they don't have any experience doing this, and maybe they only have a high school diploma, they don't have a degree in service delivery, then I have to put a lot of detail into this work plan. But the benefit it gives me is that I can use it to train people. I can train my own talent from within. I educate people. I know more. This is one of the reasons why franchises are so successful, because you can take a business model with all the work required, and theoretically put that business in a box and give it to someone, and they pretty much know how to do all the workings of that business. So you can create your own reality around this by having really good work plans. But having said that, there is such a thing as too much. This work plan's got a title, and it's got an objective, which is important. If you have a title of a work plan or any of the tools, always put the subject first and the verb or the adjective second. So I would never call this processing a customer complaint. So processing first, I would put it at the end. And that's just because when I'm searching for things or I'm looking for things, I'm not going to be thinking processing. I'm going to be thinking customer complaint. Now the search would pull it up anyway, but it's just a mindset. Like if I'm scanning through something, I want to see the subject first. Let's go down into the tasks of a work plan. This is an example of a hyperlink right here. So this is a link to the warranty and guarantee policy, which is right down here. So this is an example of linking from a work plan task to something else inside of the process. Here's another example, complete checklist daily. This is a link to the checklist, which is right up here. So this is just examples of how the tasks of the work plan kind of show the other tools that might be in the process. So if I've got a form or an uploaded file or a video, I would say, fill out this form, watch this video, and that would be in the tasks of the work plan, and then I make a link to it. Here's an example of a task hyperlink that links to another process. So this says enter flags and actions into the CRM. If I click this, it's going to take me to this process called entering CRM flags. And this is in a process called CRM how-tos. So how this is valuable is you don't want to repeat the tasks of how to enter flags into the CRM inside of every process where somebody does that, because then you have those tasks that are duplicated all throughout TouchStone, and you would lose track of even where they were. So a better idea is to link to a process. Every process that needs to enter flags into the CRM, or someone needs to enter a lead right here, you would just link to that work plan or the whole process. So I'm going to hit the back button and go back here. When you're documenting your work plans, think about normal writing convention. So try to resist doing like some things all caps like this, and some things bolded, or some things underlined, or to emphasize certain words. I'm going to do all this in caps and then the rest in lowercase. Or if I want something to stand out, I highlight it and make it purple or red. The reason you want to steer away from that is because those are people's own kind of writing style and preferences and the ways that they like to see things. It's not normal writing convention. So what you're going to get is one person's writing style and things that they emphasize are different than another. And so your documentation is going to look different. So if you want to emphasize the subject or the adjective in a task, then you need to do that with every process and every work plan you document. Don't let one person kind of run amok and start doing it all caps or all bolded and nobody else is. Another tip on documenting tasks is you see this right here, this task number 3. It says gather the following information: client name, phone number, location, job performance, service, product, blah, blah. It's just like it's a run-on sentence of a description. It's better in a task to break it apart so it's easy for the person's eye to scan through it. When I'm reading this, it's kind of telling me a story in sentence format of what you want me to do. And it's much harder to read this and be able to follow it. So what's better is to use the bullets, especially when you have a list. So here I just go on after every comma and this, and I can even all the way to the end, and then I just highlight this, and then I go here to the bullets and I'm bulleting it, and then I save it. So this is much easier to see, right? It's broken apart. I can follow this list down much easier. You can even do like sub bullets within bullets. So you can tab over and you can do different styles of these bullets. So if you have documentation like this, think about breaking it apart. Even in like a sentence like this one, it's a little, if I'm saying 2 different things in these sentences, I might want to just like put a line there. So I'm seeing it, it's all a part of this task, but it's broken apart a little bit. I see this all the time where people are telling stories in the tasks. So they're going on and on and on and on, lots of detail. It's like reading a story. It's very hard to learn something like that. I'm reading a story. I'm not seeing steps or actions I take. So let's, here's some examples of expectations. So every customer complaint will be heard with professionalism and intent to resolve. So this is like more subjective or meaningful things around it. This is timing, will be resolved within 24 hours. Listen, stay calm. These are like qualities that I should have while I'm doing this. Let's go back up here. Let's talk about checklists. So to make a checklist, same thing as the work plans. I just click this little plus sign, and then I'm going to put the name of the checklist. Then I would give the checklist a purpose. I think the objectives for checklists are good when you explain the why. So why is this checklist important? The reason why that's important is the employee might want to know what the purpose of the checklist is. Why is it there? Oftentimes employees kind of push the checklist aside and be like, well, why do I have to fill this out? And then they just stop doing it because they don't understand the purpose. There's got to be a reason why the checklist exists. And sometimes it's for management purposes, it's for quality control. So if you can give the why of it, then that helps employees understand why it's important for them to do it. So now I've got the checklist right here. So I would just click add checklist item. And so this becomes the first item. So this is a step, it's a task, it's an action. It could be some kind of expectation that I check off that I was thinking about that. Doesn't always have to be things I do. It could also be things I should be thinking about. Add another box, just go add checklist again, and then this becomes the second step. So all the functionality is the same as we went through with the work plans. I don't think there's a real need ever to have a hyperlink in a checklist. Because if you think about a checklist, it's meant to be a reminder. It's just like, do this, do this, do this, do this. Did you do that? Did you do that? It's not a complete explanation of how to do it. It's just the fact that it has to be done. So you should be brief in your checklist, make them simple. If you get into describing how to do this step, that really belongs in the work plan because that's what I use for training. That's for how I understand what to do. This is just verification that I did it. So with that in mind, the hyperlinks don't really become important. Also, images. I wouldn't recommend images in checklists. Now, we make these available because there's always people that want them, but we're talking about like best practices here. There really wouldn't be an image in a checklist because unless you're saying, does it look like this? And if they click off yes. So I suppose that would be, even in that case, I think it's better if it's in the work plan and they should be learned enough to know what it's supposed to look like. And then this could just be the verification. If I ever see checklists that are paragraphs long each step, you know right off the bat that that's not a good use of the checklist. Because when I'm filling this out, I just want to go tick, 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 did it. So the reason to have a checklist is kind of twofold. One is if it's in the best interest of the employee. So if it's something that's complicated, it's got numerous parts to it, it's something that happens over days or weeks or months, and I need to remember what I've done and what I haven't done. So it might be really valuable for the employee in that situation. The second reason is if it's valuable for management purposes. So that would entail anything from, as a manager, I just want to know that you're doing things without having to look, without having to ask you all the time. I want to know that you did it. And that's a valid reason to have a checklist. A manager's job is to kind of be looking over from afar and being able to oversee what's happening with quantification, like numbers of percentages, that reporting, and then also checklists. It's also good for tracking purposes. So if the manager has to go back to see, because a customer is complaining about something that didn't get done and they've got to go and track to see if it got done, then this is a quick way to do it. Also for a management tool, it's important. So any kind of management process like performance review or meetings you're having, checklists are great for that as well. Checklists are also great for training. So if I have an employee who's learning this customer complaints process, I might just take this work plan and convert it into a checklist. And then I might say to them, for the first month, every time you do this, I want you to tick off this checklist. Every time you handle a customer complaint, I want you to fill out the checklist. And it's just a way of enforcing the training, requiring them to look at each step as they do it and make sure that they did it. And then once they've learned it, that month is up, you could just go and delete the checklist. So that's a perfectly valid thing to do for training purposes. Now with checklists, they can be printed like the other things right here, but most commonly they're best used electronically. So over here on the dashboard, when you've assigned a process to an employee, they can go here to the process. And then when they select it, they see the checklist and they fill it out right here inside of TouchStone. So where we were before was where we're creating it. Here's where it's used. And I hit save. And now this is saved back to TouchStone. And I can go and run a report to find it. Or my manager could run a report to find it. Or I could look right here in the saved folder to see it. It has all the dates and times. So we're going to talk more and more about the dashboard functionality, especially next week. But checklists are very commonly used here. So I'm going to go on the dashboard, I'm going to go back to the 4 key functions and show you some different other types of checklists. So here, this is called a year-end checklist. So when I click this, I go down here, and this is a custom form that holds a checklist. So you could have just a series of processes really that need to be done at certain times of the year. And I could tick off this whole list of items as I do them. So checklists can be really high level like that, where it's not just the nitty gritty of the tasks of the process, it's more high level. It's like a verification of bigger things that have gotten done over the year, over the quarter, over the month. You could have daily to-do checklists like this one. So this is called daily to do. This is a checklist that is a list of hyperlinked processes. So at 8 a.m., I do warm lead selling. This is a hyperlink to the warm lead selling process. 10 a.m., I do sales follow-up. This is a hyperlink to the sales follow-up process. Now, if I'm fully trained, I probably don't need to look at the process for how to do all these things. But the link is there, just in case you do, or for a new employee. So here I'm literally like, every hour that I'm here, I'm ticking off that I've done these things. And here's kind of all throughout the day. So that's just another example of a checklist. You can have departmental checklists. So here's an example of that. These are finance checklists. So here I've got a weekly finance checklist, monthly, quarterly, annually. For administrative and financial, even managerial positions, these types of checklists kind of make sense. Again, what this is giving management is the ability to see that the finance people are doing all of this work, and by their verifying it through a checklist. So if I have an employee who's filling all these things out, I can go run a report over here and see that they're there, see that they've been done, which means I don't have to ask the person. I don't have to wait for some problem to happen because it wasn't done. I know that it's done. So that's checklists. Try not to overdo the checklists. That's another thing that I see sometimes is this love for checklists, which I think is good. And then the overdoing of them, like every process has a checklist. So ask yourself this question before you build a checklist. Is this checklist something that I'm going to manage? And when you manage something, it means that you're going to verify that it's absolutely done, no excuses. So the manager has to make sure that it's done, and it has to be valuable enough to the company or to the manager for that time to be allotted to it. So ask yourself, am I going to manage this? Am I going to be on it to a degree that if an employee doesn't do the checklist for one day, I know it and I'm emailing them saying, where's the checklist? TouchStone makes it super easy because all you have to do here is go and run a report, a management report. And you just search the day right here. You can even do the employee's name right here. And then you just see that the checklists are there. So that's what I mean by manage. If you don't manage the checklists, then your employees are just going to stop doing them. And then you're going to have this frustration of nobody's following it. Nobody's doing it. They all stopped using it. That's not their fault. It's the manager's fault because they stopped looking at them, which therefore means they don't care. So it's not important. So make sure it's important enough. We have about 5 minutes left here. So I'm going to talk about a few processes from the library that I think are great. And I'm going to do these customer service processes just because we were looking at that customer complaint process for so long. These 4 processes, I think, are requirements for any business. So it's customer complaints, which is what you do when a customer complains. It's customer satisfaction, which often reveals that the customer is not happy. And if it doesn't reveal that, it reveals that they are happy, which becomes an opportunity to get a Google review. And then reputation monitoring, which kind of I liken to both of this customer complaints and customer satisfaction, because reputation monitoring, this is like what people are saying about you on the internet. That is customer complaints and customer satisfaction. People are saying, yes, they're great. No, they're terrible. And all of it's happening on the internet. And if you're not monitoring that, then you just don't know what people are saying about you. And then this was a nice too, customer appreciation. It's just a way of saying, hey, thank you for that Google review. It doesn't have to be money. It can be a simple thank you. So how this happens is after your service has been performed, or if you have a subscription type reoccurring customer experience, then that becomes like every once in a while, like every quarter, you go through what I would call customer satisfaction. So at the end of a job, when something's been done, or just periodically, if you don't have a beginning and an end to the work that you do. Customer surveys are a good way to blanketly kind of ask for feedback, although sending out Survey Monkey or even paper surveys is a bit problematic because people don't send them back. So again, depending on your industry and your service, going through and doing a verbal survey is a great thing to do. And it could just look like calling every customer at the end of the project and saying, hey, how did it go? So this process has got a work plan in it on how to do surveys, whether they be verbal or you do them through some type of service. There's a script example right here. So this is like when somebody's calling and saying, call the customer when you receive notification from the office, the job has been complete and paid for. Then you say, hello, I'm calling from this company. I'm following up with you. How did it turn out? So really simple. And then what to do. Either it's going to be good, it's going to be just okay, or it's going to be bad. If it's good, then you would go on to ask for a review. If it's bad, then you go right into customer complaints, which is this process. This needs to be thorough. You need to take someone's complaint and move it through some kind of process where it gets dealt with. So these processes are all in the library. They're not going to be perfect the way they are for you right now, or the way that they are right now. You're going to have to edit them and kind of make them your own, but the general idea is there and it's enough to get a start. This reputation monitoring has work plans on it on how to set up free software that you can use for reputation monitoring, which is a must because there's so many different places that people can leave comments about you. You want to have some way of tracking it all. And then there's like a list of monitoring software that you can get, guidelines for customer interactions on social media. I think this is really good. It just says what to do and not do. If somebody's saying something bad about you on the internet, what you should do about that. Apologize, listen, not react. You could even build like sample responses. I think there's examples of responses right here, but you could add to this, like thank the reviewer, keep it short. And so these are like some words that you would use around that. This is like time well spent. It's really, really, really important. People do look up businesses on the internet way more than you would think. There's, this is also inside the process, but this is just a list of 11 things or reasons why having a good customer complaint process and a good customer satisfaction process is so important. Price is not the main reason for customer churn. It's actually due to poor quality of service. And we really don't even know unless you ask. A customer is 4 times more likely to defect to a competitor if the problem is service related, not price. The probability, and this is a kicker, of selling to an existing customer is 60 to 70%. The probability of selling to a new prospect, 5 to 20. This means keep your existing customers. For every customer complaint, there are 26 other unhappy customers that remain silent. And you all know this is true. Like if you have a bad experience with a business, you talk about that like, oh God, look listen to what happened to me today. And you're telling everybody. And you're not so inclined to say when something was great. 96% of unhappy customers don't complain. However, 91% of those simply leave and never come back. So think about these reasons why, like why this kind of these 2 simple processes, complaints and appreciation, are so important, and reputation monitoring. There's another key thing. I just want to point out, we're out of time. There's another key thing I want to point out right here. It's in customer satisfaction, and it's client service standards. So this is in the process that you can pull down from the library, but this is a good thing to do with your team. Decide on a set of customer service standards. These are the things that we do. We greet customers, courteous and professional manner. We listen, we inform. So this helps get your culture together on this to know what is, acceptable and what is not acceptable. So this can be a really like culture changing exercise to go through and create what are your customer service standards. I got one, let's see. I see your question, Carolyn. How do you link how do you link job description to salary money, and how do you project a budget from that? Job description from salary and money. For those of you who want to hang out for this, I'm just going to do a recap of that. So last week, I think this is what you're referring to. We talked about how each box on the org chart represents a salary, right? So each person here on the org chart is earning either a salary or an hourly wage. So when you build the org chart, you want to think into the future. And sometimes you have future positions. So this org chart could be a picture of my business 2 years from now. Currently, I'm the president, I'm the office manager, I'm the customer support person. But as the business grows, I want to hire this position and remove myself from those boxes. So in a business that's scaling, you need to know how much you're going to have to pay each of these positions in order to hire them and allow the business to grow. So we talked about a process from the library where you can analyze salaries and hourly wages for each box on your future chart, and you can do like a high low of the salary, and that allows you to plan that out in your budgets. So and that's a really great process, and I'm pretty sure we talked about that in the org chart session. So Carolyn, I can send you the recording for the org chart. That's probably the best way. And if I've misunderstood your question, then send me an email and I'll follow up with you. There's a few people who I'm not going to have time to answer your questions right now, but just know that I will contact you by the end of today. Next week, we are going to talk about the rest of the process tools. So we're going to discuss scripting. I think scripts are some of the most underutilized templates or methods for documentation, and I'm going to explain why. Scripts can be some of the most phenomenal training tools if you know how to use them. So we're going to talk about scripts, the uploaded files tool, document, the custom complaint form to build fillable forms and employee tests. And then I'm going to show you some tips and techniques for uploading video files and creating video files.